My dear friends, have you ever asked yourself, just how thin is the line between life and death? Sometimes it's as thin as a breath, as light as a falling snowflake, and as cold as a moonless winter night. Tonight, we are stepping into a haunting story. A story about a cruel twist of fate. While one person races against time to find love, the other is slowly drifting into an eternal sleep on a cold stone bench. What happens when a fragile life is abandoned in the middle of this vast city? Will the compassion of strangers triumph over the Grim Reaper's scythe? Or will Jack the man rushing through the night face a lifetime of regret? Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and stay with us until the very last second. Because believe me, the moment destiny collides will make your heart skip a beat. And don't forget to hit subscribe right now so you don't miss the ending of this battle for life. That night, the city didn't sleep, but the silence was terrifying. The cold wasn't just a temperature. It felt like a curse, an invisible monster swallowing up every street and alleyway. In a hidden corner of the park, where sickly yellow streetlights struggled to pierce through the bare tree branches, Tien was lying there. She wasn't sleeping. She was waiting to die. The park bench, a resting spot for lovers during the day, had now turned into a giant block of ice, draining the last bit of warmth from the young girl. Tien curled up, her body bent like a shrimp, trying to make herself as small as possible to conserve heat. But it was useless. The thin jacket she wore felt like nothing more than a sheet of paper. The wind didn't just blow. It sliced like razor blades, cutting through the seams of her shirt, biting into her flesh, piercing right to the bone. It hurt so much. Tien wanted to say it out loud, but the sound was stuck in her dry throat. It had been 3 days. 3 days without medication. The heart pills, the painkillers she depended on to survive, were now just a distant memory. Without them, the monster of illness had awakened. At first, it was just a slight twinge in the left side of her chest. But now, as night fell, it revealed its true form as brutal torture. Imagine an invisible, ice-cold hand reaching into your chest, grabbing your weak, beating heart and squeezing it tight. That is exactly what Tien was feeling. Thump, thump. Her heartbeat was chaotic. Sometimes it pounded like it wanted to burst out of her chest. Other times it skipped a beat, leaving a terrifying void that forced her to gasp for air. Her eyes began to blur. The streetlights above didn't stay still anymore. They danced and swayed, turning into ghostly will-o'-the-wisps. In her delirium, memories flooded back, like shards of broken glass cutting into her mind. She saw warm, sunny afternoons. She saw Jack smile. She heard his deep, warm voice. Tien promised me never let go. Jack, where are you? Tien whispered in her mind. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes, but the cold wind instantly dried them, leaving stinging salt trails on her pale cheeks. She wanted to reach for her phone, wanted to call him one last time. But her hands, those hands were numb, devoid of all feeling. They lay motionless by her side, as if they no longer belonged to her body. The loneliness right now was more terrifying than death itself. She was terrified that by morning, when the sun rose, people would only find a nameless frozen corpse forgotten amidst the bustle of life. At the same time, about 10 kilometers from the park, a high-displacement motorcycle was tearing through the wind on the deserted avenue. The rider was Jack. His face was hidden behind his helmet visor, but if you looked closely, you would see eyes burning with absolute panic. "Pick up! Tien, please! Pick up!" Jack screamed inside his helmet, even though he knew no one could hear him. The phone rang with long, hopeless tones through his Bluetooth headset, ending with the cold voice of the operator. "The subscriber you are calling." Why was he so uneasy? All evening, his right eyelid had been twitching uncontrollably. A restless, burning sensation, like a fire inside him, made it impossible to sit still. He remembered their senseless argument a few days ago. He remembered Tien leaving without her wallet. And most importantly, she had forgotten to take her medicine. I was wrong. I shouldn't have let her leave. Regret was gnawing at Jack's soul. He twisted the throttle harder. The speedometer needle climbed to a dangerous number. Streetlights blurred past like broken lines. He didn't know where Tien was. He was driving on instinct, rushing to places they used to date. The old coffee shop closed. The riverbank. No one there. Only one place left. Winter Park, the place he first confessed his love to her. But Jack didn't know that the Grim Reaper was running one step faster than him. Geographical distance can be shortened by speed, but the distance of life was stretching out by the second. Back at the park, the clock struck 2 a.m. The silence was broken by the creaking sound of an iron gate opening. Mrs. Lon, a middle-aged woman living across from the park, threw on a thick wool sweater and stepped out to toss a trash bag she'd forgotten earlier. She shivered in the biting cold, intending to rush right back inside. But then her eyes froze. Under the flickering streetlights on the familiar stone bench lay a bundle of clothes. No, looking closer, it was a person. My God, who sleeps out here at this hour? Mrs. Lon muttered, intending to ignore it. But the posture, it was too abnormal. The girl's head was lolled to the side at a grotesque angle, drooping off the edge of the bench. An arm dangled out from the coat, pale white and motionless in midair. Her gut told her something was terribly wrong. Mrs. Land tiptoed closer, her heart pounding. "Hey, miss. Excuse me," she called out softly. No answer. Only the sound of wind whistling through the leaves. She stepped closer. The streetlight illuminated Tien's face. Mrs. Lan screamed, clamping her hand over her mouth to stop herself from vomiting. That face was drained of blood. The lips were so purple, they looked black. And the eyes were squeezed shut, sunken deep into their sockets. "Help! Help, someone's dead!" Mrs. Land's blood-curdling scream tore through the quiet night. Mr. Hung, a neighbor, watching late-night soccer, heard the scream and rushed into the street. A young late-night delivery driver also slammed on his brakes. 3 strangers surrounded the stone bench. The tension was suffocating. "Is she still alive?" Mr. Hung asked, trembling. The delivery guy placed 2 fingers on Tien's neck to check her pulse. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds passed. He broke into a cold sweat despite the freezing winter air. "It's weak. Uncle, the pulse is very weak. I can barely feel anything." He looked up, his voice cracking with fear. "She's cold as ice." Chaos erupted. "Call 911 now. Hurry. Get a coat." "Who has a warm coat?" They scrambled. Mr. Hung stripped off his thick jacket and draped it over Tien. Mrs. Lon sat down frantically, rubbing the girl's freezing hands, sobbing as she did. "Wake up, child, don't sleep. If you sleep, you'll die." The delivery man knelt close to Tien's ear, shouting, "Miss, hang in there. The ambulance is almost here. Breathe, inhale." But in response to their desperate efforts, Tien's chest only heaved with broken, fragile breaths, flickering like a candle before a storm. She was slipping away from this world. Time dragged on like torture. Every second of waiting felt like a century. Finally, from the distance, came the sound. Wee woo. Wee woo. The ambulance siren. The sound of life. Red and blue lights flashed, piercing the pitch-black night, illuminating Tien's pale face. The paramedics jumped out like soldiers. How long has the patient stopped breathing? We don't know. We just found her. No pulse detected. Blood pressure dropping deep. Prep the defibrillator if needed. Oxygen. Get it on her now. Short, sharp commands rang out. They hoisted Tien's feather-light body onto the stretcher. An oxygen mask was clamped over her face. Wires were connected. The ambulance doors slammed shut. The engine roared and the vehicle sped away, leaving behind the empty stone bench and the stunned strangers standing there praying. And exactly 30 seconds later, the screech of tires burning rubber echoed skid. Jack's heavy motorcycle slid to a halt right in front of the park gate. He threw the bike down and sprinted inside like a madman. Tien. He ran to the familiar stone bench. But there was no one. Only a blue scarf lying on the ground, the scarf he had given her for her birthday. Jack picked up the scarf. It was ice cold. He looked around, completely bewildered. He saw Mrs. Lan's group hadn't dispersed yet. He rushed over, grabbing Mr. Hung's arm, his eyes bloodshot. "Sir, did you see a girl? Long hair, wearing a white shirt, sitting here?" Mr. Hung looked at the young man with pitying eyes. "Are you family? Why are you only here now? The ambulance just took her away. It's very bad. I don't know if she'll make it through the night." That sentence struck him like lightning. Jack collapsed to the ground, gripping the scarf tight. He was too late. Just 30 seconds late. But those 30 seconds might be the distance between life and death. In the distance, the ambulance siren still echoed, fading, getting smaller. Carrying the girl he loved most toward the gates of death. The ambulance was tearing through the night, carrying a life flickering like a lamp in the wind. Inside the cold cabin, Tien's heartbeat on the monitor flattened into a long, straight line. "Babe!" Can the doctors wrestle her back from the Grim Reaper? Will Jack make it to the hospital to say he's sorry? Or will he face a cold corpse? And what is the mysterious illness Tien has hidden for so long? Jack's motorcycle tore through the darkness, speeding like a wounded beast. The engine roared, echoing between silent skyscrapers, but it couldn't drown out the screaming in his mind. Tien, wait for me. Please, wait for me. Every meter passed was a knife slicing into Jack's heart. The night wind whipped his face freezing and cruel, but he felt no pain. What was physical pain compared to the fear strangling his breath right now? Inside his head, memories of Tien began to rewind like a slow-motion film, heartbreakingly clear. He remembered the last time they met. It wasn't a goodbye kiss, but an argument. "You don't understand. You'll never understand what I'm going through." Tien's scream from that day still rang in his ears. Back then, Jack had thought she was being unreasonable. He thought she was just making a scene because of the pressure of money and bills. He had turned his back and walked away, leaving her crying alone in that cramped little rental room. Oh God, what have I done? Jack slammed his fist against the gas tank. If only he knew that behind that unreasonableness was a body being ravaged by sickness every single day. If only he had looked closer at her dark circles and pale lips that day, instead of just focusing on his own ego. Now, hearing the news that she was in the ER, regret crashed over him like a tsunami drowning him. He realized that her silence over the past few days wasn't anger. It was the silence of endurance, of not wanting to bother him, of not wanting to be a burden. Don't die. Please, I'm begging you. Don't punish me like this. The hospital lights appeared in the distance, stark white and cold like the gates of hell. Jack gritted his teeth and twisted the throttle to the max. He was racing against the Grim Reaper, and he knew he was losing. Screech! The sound of tires burning rubber echoed in front of the ER lobby. Jack threw his bike down haphazardly and rushed inside like a madman. The air in the hospital was thick with the smell of antiseptic, the smell Jack hated most in the world. It was the smell of sickness, of pain, and of goodbyes, with no promise of return. Patient Tien. Where is she? The girl just brought in from the park? Jack screamed at the nurse, on duty sweat mixing with rain on his forehead. The nurse looked up at him. Her eyes filled with sympathy, but also cold professionalism. Are you family? Yes, I'm her husband. Where is she? Even though they weren't married in this moment, that title was the only thing binding him to her. The patient is in the ICU, critical condition. Her heart stopped once in the ambulance. The doctors are doing everything they can. Please go over there to fill out the paperwork and wait. The phrase, "her heart stopped once," hit Jack like lightning. His legs turned to jelly, and he collapsed right in the middle of the crowded hospital corridor. The world around Jack suddenly crumbled. The hurried footsteps, the screeching of gurney wheels, the PA system calling doctors' names. Everything blurred and buzzed. In his eyes right now, there was only that tightly closed ER door. Above it, the red surgery light glared like a demon's eye, blood red, threatening to swallow the girl he loved. Jack dragged himself to a waiting chair and slumped down. He looked at his hands. These hands had promised to protect her, to bring her happiness. But now they were empty. They were helpless. They couldn't do a thing to save her. He looked around. An old woman counting rosary beads in prayer. A young couple holding each other and crying. On this borderline between life and death, everyone becomes small and weak in the face of fate. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Time seemed to freeze, torturing the souls of those waiting. Finally, the ER doors opened. An old doctor stepped out, removing a surgical mask stained with fatigue. Jack sprang up like a coiled spring, rushing over. "Doctor, how is she?" The doctor looked at Jack, studying him intently. "Are you family?" Yes, I'm her boyfriend. The doctor sighed a heavy sigh that made Jack's heart clench. We managed to get her heartbeat back. She is out of immediate danger. Jack was about to sigh in relief when the doctor's voice hardened, but that but dragged Jack right back to hell. She has severe hypothermia combined with prolonged malnutrition. But that's not all. Through blood tests and scans, we discovered she is in the final stage of chronic kidney failure. Did you know about this? Jack was stunned. Kidney failure, final stage. That's impossible. She never told me. She hid it from you. The doctor shook his head. Based on old medical records, we found she stopped treatment 3 months ago. Her body right now is like a lamp running out of oil. We are performing continuous dialysis. You need to prepare yourself. Her life is now measured in days. Jack stood there paralyzed. Stop treatment, why? Suddenly, he remembered the savings they had set aside to buy a house. 3 months ago, that money suddenly evaporated. Tien said she lost it or lent it to her sister. Jack had scolded her so much. It turns out, did she use that money for medicine? Or did she stop buying medicine to keep that money safe for him? The cruel truth began to dawn on him. She accepted dying a slow death so she wouldn't become a financial burden on him. Can I see her? Jack asked, his voice cracking broken only through the glass. She needs a completely sterile environment. Jack walked to the ICU window. Inside, amidst a forest of machines and tangled wires, Tien lay there. She looked heartbreakingly small. Her pale skin blended into the white bedsheets. An oxygen tube covered the delicate face he knew so well. Jack placed his hand on the cold glass. He wanted to touch her, wanted to transfer his warmth to her, but the lifeless glass separated their two worlds. Tien, why are you so stupid? Why did you bear this all alone? Tears rolled down the man's cheeks, salty and stinging. He looked at her, feeling absolute helplessness and agony. A nurse walked up, handing Jack a plastic bag containing Tien's personal effects. This is the patient's stuff from when she was admitted. Please hold on to it. Jack took the bag. Inside was only the old set of clothes she wore when she collapsed and a worn-out handbag. Jack opened the bag. No wallet. No makeup or lipstick like other girls. There was only one blister pack of pills, completely empty, the foil wrapper, crushed proof of the agonizing pain she had endured in her final hours. And a small blue notebook, trembling. Jack opened the notebook. The last page was written yesterday. The handwriting was messy, shaky, and smudged with tears in places. Date. Jack, it's so cold today. I'm in so much pain, but I don't dare take the last painkiller. I want to save it for when I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry for leaving. I know you'll be mad. But I don't want you to see me ugly and ruined like this. I don't want the money you worked so hard for to be thrown down the drain into a soulless dialysis machine. Use that money to open the motorcycle shop you dreamed of. Forget me. Find a healthy girl who can cook for you, who can give you children. Things I can't do. I'm sitting in this park where you first confessed to me. I want to die here. Where it began is where it ends. If there is a next life, I promise to repay this debt of love. Love you. Goodbye. Jack closed the notebook, clutching it tight to his chest. He broke down crying right in the hospital hallway. He cried like a child. She didn't abandon him. She was sacrificing for him in the most foolish and painful way. It was his own insecurity, his poverty, and his insensitivity that had pushed her to that cold stone bench. But the tragedy didn't stop there. Just as Jack was drowning in grief, the alarm from the recovery room screamed out. Beep, 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 red lights flashed continuously. Doctors and nurses from other rooms stamped into tien's room. Patient in cardiac arrest again. Prep the paddles. Hurry. BP dropping to 0. Where's the adrenaline? Inject it now. Jack sprang up, pressing his face against the glass. He saw tien's tiny body jolt after every shock. Thump. Her body bounced up, then fell back motionless. Thump. Still that stubborn flat line on the monitor. Come on, don't give up. Jack is here, please. Jack screamed, pounding his fists on the glass, but inside, the doctors were shaking their heads. The chief doctor checked his watch, ready to call the time of death. My dear friends, will a miracle happen at the last minute? Can Jack's screams call tien's soul back? Or will that diary be the final testament of a tragic romance? And there is one more secret, a secret about tien's true identity that even she doesn't know about, to be revealed by a stranger just arriving at the hospital gate. Tien's fate is now like a candle in the wind. Don't take your eyes off the screen. Smash that like button to give strength to this resilient girl, and subscribe immediately to be the first to know the result in the next episode. The 3 a.m. miracle and the return of the mysterious father.